Blackbridge sound. So we've had a few people reach out to us in the comments asking how we mix our drums. Personally, I don't do much of the mixing. I'm the handsome one. So J-Rock here is going to toast you up a little walkthrough to show you how we do it.
You do much?
Any of the mixing.
Let's go.
In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at what we got going on in the drum mix. I'm going to do this less as a mix tutorial and kind of just show you what I've got going on personally. Everything you see on the board doesn't really do anything for the mix. I've just got it routed through so I can send different signals out into the studio. All the mixing is done in Logic. We're using stock plugins for everything, so it's pretty simple. Basically what I've got going on here is I've got it set up so I can mute my channels, or I've got things bussed in so I can put individual things in, or even just a click track. The click track always runs out to the studio, so I don't have to listen to it in here. I can turn that off, or I can just listen to whatever I've got coming in the mix. So I'll mute some tracks here. Pull up just the drums. We'll get rid of everything. Alright, so that's just the dry drums. Usually like to start with the kick drums. Both kick drums will be exactly the same because we're using two on this. So we start with the EQ. And this is what I've got going on my EQ. I like to bring out the highs to get that kind of slap in there, especially for metal. When you start putting in the guitars, it kind of buries it without all this in here. It kind of falls into the background. So I like to put my gates on. This is just the kick drum. It's a fairly tight gate. That's what I got going on here. Throw on the compressor. One thing I like to do with the kick drum, especially, like to bring in some low end, but I don't have like a sub kick or anything, so I do it digitally. So what I do is I put a gate over here and bring in a test oscillator. It really adds a lot of thump to it. Basically all that is it's just this. It's just a tone generator. You can hear it's just always constantly going. So I'll gate it and run it as a side chain to the kick drum. So it's gating itself off the kick drum and it's only opening when the kick drum hits. Adds a lot of nice low end to it. Hear it without it, with it. So that's what I got going on the kicks. All right, so we'll move on to the snare. This is my dry snare signal. First thing I like to do is run a gate. You got to be really careful with the gate, especially if your drummer is doing a lot of ghost notes. So you will hear a lot of kind of areas where the gate kind of opens up when it really shouldn't, but it's the best I can do for now. With some EQ. That's my snare gate settings. There's my snare EQ. Hear it off. I like a really wet snare usually. So I got some stereo reverb. On its own, it doesn't sound the greatest, but when you start throwing in other stuff with it, kind of really shines to life. That's my snare. See if we can find you some tom fills. There's all three of the toms together. You can really see why the noise gate comes into play. You can hear a lot of ring from the toms, especially every time you hit the snare. First thing I do is gate those. Bring this in tighter. You really hear quite the difference in the EQ. This is the first tom. This is the second tom. What I'll play around with these frequencies, kind of find what best suits the drum. There's the third tom, the floor tom. Throw a little bit of compression on them. Really kind of bring out the punch. That's what I got going on for the compressor. And throw a little reverb on. To bring out that room sound. I'm not using any room mics on here, so. There's my reverb. Let's go to the overheads. There's the dry overhead signals. So the EQ might look kind of weird. So what I do is I'll drop drop pretty much everything. Below, what do we got? Everything below 400 hertz is just gone. So put that on. So all of that's kind of really unnecessary because it's all being picked up by the close mics, so it leaves a lot of extra room in the mix for guitars, bass, everything else. Just kind of cleans it up. Do the same EQ curve for left and right. A little bit of a compressor on there. Again, it'll be the same compressor left and right. That's what I got going on there. And just another touch of reverb. I think this is quite a light mix. Adds a little bit more, so you can really hear it on the snare. That's the full mix. What I will do as well, run a little bit of a compression. Just a little tiny bit. Just because YouTube will tend to compress audio quite heavily if you're over a certain threshold. So I just add a little bit in there. Nothing much. And then just run a limiter so I'm not running too hot of a signal. That's what we got going on.
So there it is. That's how Jarrett mixes our drums. Let us know in the comments what we did right, what we did wrong. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, what were we gonna say?
Something about fucking comments and fucking mixing.